Kill yourself. I hear voices telling me to kill myself over and over again. This is what a young Muslim who was on the mentally ill unit of the prison told me as I was making my rounds. In fact, I was told to visit him by his psychologist. And he said they won't stop. They just keep bothering me and telling me to do this. And so I asked him some standard questions just to find out, where he was from and kind of what had happened to him. And his mental illness was drug-induced. And as a result, he committed a crime, and as a result, in the state that he was in, they send him to a prison. And this was a maximum security prison. So he's in a cell, and I'm talking to him about these voices that he's hearing. And so I told him, not being a psychologist, but being aware that there's these influences that affect us. And they're called coatir, these involuntary suggestions. They come into our hearts while the heart is unaware, unmindful of them. And this was the case with this young man. And we all have these. And they are in two groups. There are those that are from Allah and the angels, and those that are from Satan and the nefs. Of course, all the good ones, the clearly good ones, are from Allah. The result of those good influences or good actions. We may have all had the experience of, for example, someone calling us, and we turned and the bus just flew by us. We looked for who called us, and it was no one. These are the influences that Allah sends, the angels, and Allah by his own inspiration, not revelation. That's for the prophets. But Allah sends influences to us that direct us to something good. And the end result of that influence is a good action. On the other hand, we have the satanic and the nefs. The satanic influences and the nefs. Satan or Satan, we're familiar with. The nefs, when we say the nefs, we may not know exactly what this is. Well, the nefs is this soul that Allah has given us. And Allah mentions it in the Quran in Surah Yusuf. The lowest one of them is nafs amara, the soul that is prone to evil. And this soul that is prone to evil works in conjunction with Satan. And Satan is a known whisperer. So he's constantly whispering influences. But there's a difference in the influences. The nefs influences tend to be on desires. Things that drive us away from Allah, our appetite, our sexual desires, greed and laziness and all of these things. When you see someone, for example, you see these people that are 600 pounds and whatnot, and they can't stop eating, this is the nefs. When you see someone who flies off that handle and is always angry and easily, this is the nefs. The nefs is impatient. The nefs is lazy. It loves any extreme thing. So it works in conjunction with Satan, whose mission is to see the sons and daughters of Adam go to hell by any means. So he's constantly whispering doubts and he's whispering weak ideas and things into the heart so that he can get control. And once, of course, he has control, then this is what ruins the human being. And so this young man who was suffering from these voices, we were explaining to him that there's maybe two ways to deal with the influences like this, when they're bad influences and they're coming from your own self. What you do is you either punish it or you use diplomacy. Punishing it is to say, if you keep doing this, then I'm gonna fast for 60 days straight. The nefs doesn't like to fast. But sometimes this method is a little too hard for people. And sometimes it can backfire. So what one has to do is know how they work. Diplomacy, on the other hand, is when a person is diplomatic with the nefs. It gives it what it wants, as long as it's within the Sharia, the law, and it takes from the nefs what it needs. So it says, look, if you stop this, then I'll get you a nice ice cream sundae and a piece of cake, and I'll take a long nap after that. This is the stuff that it likes. So I told him about this diplomacy with the self. So just say to yourself, if you stop that, I'm gonna really give you a nice dinner and set things up really nice for you. And so this young man, I left him and came back later, and he had told me that they had stopped, that he wasn't being played by them like he was. And I told him that he would have to keep this up. And this is for all of us, that we have these influences, and we have to know where they're coming from. And the key is not to be deceived by something that has a cover on it like good, but the result of it is, or what it's really promoting, is something bad. And the only way to know this is to stick very close to what Allah has revealed in his book and in his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is truly how you can distinguish the good from the evil. And so what you want to do when you hear voices telling you to do things that are opposed to your health, both mentally and physically, is to immediately distinguish who is doing the whispering, who is doing the influence. And if it's from Satan or Shaitan, the devils, the jinn, evil jinn, and your own nefs, then reject it. And if it's from Allah and from the angels, then you want to do this good influence. And so the voices that you hear are not necessarily your voice, but they're the voice of other entities. And so you want to follow the best of what you hear and never be deceived by the chief deceiver, because all he wants is your destruction. We ask Allah to guide us and to keep us on this marvelous way of Islam.